Hello guys, this is Rishabh and welcome to ILMS Academy webinars. ILMS Academy, India's premier legal and management education portal. Get certified to enhance employability.
Welcome back after a break. So now, just to brief you up, initially in first video we discussed basic concepts in layman's language so that everybody knows about it. Then we elaborated with with technical examples and the case laws and how to. Now we were discussing, in previous video how to construct a draft. So now we have a question from one student. He wants to know, like he's little getting confused. Like, initially we were talking about background, then we came to examples and all. So he wants us to detail the patent draft in step-by-step manner. So let us, address his queries. So his first question is like, how many parts are there in a draft and how to construct each of the part of the draft?
Yeah, so I will just answer that. So I'll just share one slide for that. You can see this slide?
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah. So every patent has got few parts. The first starts with the title. So it's what you call your patent. What is the name of your invention? What is the description? It's a one-line description of your product or your process. So sometimes people in companies often they think that when you have a patent, it must be described by the company's name. So they call it Auto 365 or something like that. That can't be a title. So when you say title, we are talking about a technical nomenclature for the invention. What is it in one or two words or in three, four, five words, which can describe your invention? It may be possible to describe it as a novel, wheel assembly or a novel tire assembly, something like that. So that's the way you will give a title. Then you come to the field of the invention, where you describe what is your invention all about. So what is the general scope of your invention? It is relating to the field of pharmaceuticals. It is relating to the field of automotives. It is relating to developments in the field of wheels for automotive vehicles. So that's the general view. So you are giving a 50,000 feet view of what the field of your invention is. So you're just generally describing that it belongs to this field so that people can narrow their focus and then think about, all right, you're going to talk about catalysts and you're going to talk about Ziegler-Natta catalysts. So I will only talk, then my invention, my thought will start revolving around Ziegler-Natta catalysts. Then comes the background of the invention, which we have described which we had discussed in our earlier section earlier. So that sets out what is the technological advancements which existed so far. What were the technical advances which people did? What did all the people do? What people were doing in the world? And then comes the part where you describe the prior art. You say, well, people were doing the following things. They had so many, suppose you've invented a new drug for cancer. You will say that cancer is very prevalent. Breast cancer, prostate cancer is there, and it spreads very rapidly. And there are so many technological solutions for that. So sometimes there are, people recommend going for surgery, but then it comes back, there is a relapse. And to deal with a relapse, you have certain drugs which help to treat the relapse. So these drugs have the following disadvantages. Then you describe those prior arts where those specific drugs are described. Then you describe your invention. So this was the sob story about the technology which is in a complete state of disarray, where there is nothing available. And you come like the panacea, which brings the new good news in this whole world. And the good news is your invention, where you say that now I have this drug which will not only treat the relapse, but it will quickly help to sustain the patient so that this relapse will not occur again, so that this will be totally arrested, so that there will be no further growth. So that will become the objects, and that will become the objects of the invention. Then you will come to the detailed description of the invention, where you will describe your drug in detail, or your product, or whatever that product is. You will describe it in detail, where you will talk about how it was made, what is the general contours of that product, what it does. And thereafter, if there are any drawings, you will sort of add the drawings as well. And then will come the final section, which has the claims. Now, before going to the claims, in the detailed description itself, one will have even examples. So examples will be the actual working examples which you must have done in your laboratory, where you will describe what were the products which you prepared, how you prepared it, and then you will test it, as I said, test it against the prior art, and then show that your product is much more efficacious as compared to the prior art products. And then comes the final claims, where now when you come to claims, people think that they should make the claim to say that, oh, it cures cancer 10 times better than the prior art. So that's not a claim. The claim is, what is it which is your invention. So you have to, you want to summarize that what is your invention, which people should not copy. So what should people not copy? A compound which has the following structure, and that if anybody makes should not be copied by others. So you have to give the structure of the compound and the variants of that compound, so that if there are any people who will make a clever variant, so that will also be embraced within the scope of your claims. Now also within the claims, you will also talk about your composition, because you will not just make the compound, you will also make a tablet. So you will talk about that as well. So all of those things and the process of preparing it, so all of that will be set out in the claims of the invention. So this is the way the patent application should be arranged, and this is the way we should go about writing our application.
Okay. So there is this question this our viewer has asked, that in detailed description, like how many examples we should give, and how we should select the example. Should we increase the number of examples? Should we reduce the number of examples? How to elaborate by way of example?
So it depends from invention to invention. So there are some inventions which are very simple, and some inventions which are a bit complicated. So if you have invention like a wheel assembly, so in that there will be a wheel, and you will show the different parts of the wheel, and you will show the invention which you have, the improvements which you have made, that the wheel is very easy to grasp, and therefore it is very easy to drive, and the wheel assembly can be easily fitted into the car or the other vehicle, whichever vehicle you're talking about. So that's how you will talk about that wheel assembly. But otherwise, if it is something very complicated, something which is a little complicated, like in the pharmaceutical field, there you may wish to talk about a few more examples, because it also depends on what you are trying to claim. So the law is that whatever you claim should be described in the specification. So it is not like you can describe a chair in the specification, and ultimately what you claim is only a table. That won't work. So your table which you claim has to be described in the specification. How to make the table, what are the contours of the table, should it be round, should it be square, should it be rectangular, should it have 2 legs, should it have 4 legs, and if it has 4 legs, how long should be the legs, should it be very long, should it be short, can they be very, very, very short? So, and how thick should they be? Should they be made of plastic? Should they be made of iron? Should they be made of wood? So everything should be described in the specification. So to illustrate is when you have the examples. So wherever there is a need for illustration is when you will give the examples. And in pharmaceutical patents, in medicinal, pharmaceutical, biotechnological inventions, there is always a need to give a large number of examples, because every compound is very difficult to make. Every compound has its own process of preparation. So therefore, in those cases, you may wish to have large number of examples. By large number, I mean some 10, 12 examples to show how this compound was prepared. So if it is a single compound, then it's good enough to have one or two, examples. On the other hand, if you're going to claim some, say 50, 100, 200, 300 compounds in the same patent, then perhaps you may need to show how those, at least out of the 200, how 50 of them were prepared. So you need to give that many number of examples. Or if you're claiming a process, and you are saying that in this process, these are the parameters which are used, then you will need to justify those parameters by giving certain examples in the specification. So if you say that, in my catalyst, in the Ziegler-Natta catalyst, I can use aluminum also, I can use cadmium also, I can use this also, that also, then you must give some examples to show in your specification that if you use aluminum, this is the result which is achieved. If you use something else, then this is the result which is achieved. So that, that is the scope. So therefore, to justify that scope, you will have to modulate your examples. So it may not be too many, it may be too many. So one can't put a number on that. I won't put a number and say you must give 4 examples or 5 or 6 or 7. It depends upon your invention, and it depends largely on the scope of the claims, what you are claiming. If you are claiming that everything with between 10 to 500 degrees is something that I have invented, and all the process, this process can be performed between 5 to 500 degrees, then that is something you have to justify in your specification. On the other hand, if you say this temperature, this process can be performed at, say, 5 to 20 degrees, then it is good enough for you to give 2, 3 examples, one at 5 degrees, one at 10 degrees, one at 15 degrees. So that will be good enough. But so therefore, everything depends on what sort of claims you make. So claim is very critical when you're defining what sort of examples you want to give. So if the whole idea of giving the examples is to teach people how to make it. So when the patent has expired, when it comes into public domain, people should be able to read your patent specification, and then they should be able to produce the product, to manufacture the product. So that's the teaching which you are giving. So the teaching has to be there.
Okay. So one more thing is this pharmaceutical company has asked so when they are deciding on examples, so they should focus only on the examples that are related to the inventions, not the enhancements and improvements.
So this is a very tricky issue, because that again brings us back to the time when, what is the invention, to when we are planning as to what should be the invention which is disclosed. That's why I said, planning is very important. So we have to identify, this is the core invention that I have made, and these are the improvements, the embellishments also which I have made, or which I have come across, or which I would be making in the future. So then you may need to divide your invention into 2 or 3 compartments. That the core invention will be covered in one patent. The embellishments, the further improvements which you have thought of, or which you are making or have made, should be covered in subsequent patents. You cannot cover all of them in the same application, because anyway in law it says that, one patent application will accommodate only one invention. So one patent application has to have one invention. So there is really no point for you to disclose 10 inventions in one application. The patent office will anyway ask you that, look, you've disclosed 10 inventions in this application, I'm not going to allow you. you please carve out a divisional application, divide it. This is what the patent office will say. So instead of disclosing everything on the first day, it would be a good idea that you disclose it in pieces, in separate applications.
Okay. So it's very nice detailed example which ma'am has given. So basically everyone has to keep in mind that one patent application is for one invention. They should not stuff multiple things in that, and also they should plan their examples very strategically. If they think that okay, examples is enhancing the grant or adding to the invention and cutting off the competitors, it is good enough to include examples. But if examples are somewhere, maybe reducing your scope to claim future inventions which you might, plan, so try to avoid those examples. It will also increase the life of your patent, and also it will benefit you in innovating new products year on year. So yeah. So
So
moving on to
just to add to what we had just discussed. So I'll give you an example. Like we had these people who are making agarbattis.
yeah.
So they came up with this agarbatti which will last for about 4 to 5 hours. Normally, you have these agarbattis which just last for about an hour. So they were adding certain ingredients which will make it burn for a longer time. So it will be a composition for making this agarbatti which will be eventually rolled out into a stick. And then they had different flavors onto it. So they had a flavor, jasmine flavor, then they had the sandalwood flavor and all that stuff. And then they had one which was a combination flavor. So in that sense, in that what happens was that in the beginning you will get a rose kind of a smell. And after 10-15 minutes, you will get some jasmine smell. And after 10-15 minutes, you will get a pineapple flavor. That kind of a smell.
Hmm.
So that's what they were planning. So I told them that all right, you can have one patent application where you disclose this agarbatti, which is going to burn for 4 or 5 hours. So that could be one invention. The different flavors, the rose and the jasmine, could also be accommodated within that, because they are just different flavors of the same composition. On the other hand, this multiple flavor based one agarbatti having multiple flavors, multiple aromas. So that I had suggested to them to file as a separate application, because that's a separate invention by itself.
Yeah.
So this is how we need to plan and divide. So you need to sit down with your attorney or with whoever is filing your patent application. Or if you are filing it, then you discuss with someone or you discuss it with yourself, you know, what are the different aspects of your invention, and then plan it out. So that planning stage is very important. People, generally just go down to saying, all right, now let's start writing the patent application, and they write it quite like a research paper. So research paper is where you write very differently, but in the invention, in a patent application, is where you describe your invention, and there are certain legal aspects which have to be taken care of when you're writing your invention. So that's why it's very important for you to plan what you want to write and then write accordingly. Yeah,
So
please
yeah.
continue.
So this is a best advice repeated every time, and has to keep in mind that planning is very important. Plan your draft, craft your draft, and most importantly, keep in mind it's not just an invention. This draft decides everything. Your future inventions, your market, your monopoly, everything. So plan your draft. Okay. And if you don't have any futuristic plans, just come to ma'am. She will tell you how to divide and how to conquer the market. So yeah, say moving ahead. So there is this one question this person has asked, that what is the difference between, claim in this independent claim and dependent claim?
Yeah. So when you write a claim, there are different kinds of claims which you have in a patent. First is the independent claim, which is the main claim. which tells you what is your main invention. So just let me, share one slide for that. Yeah, you can see this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here is the main claim. So this is the claim for the herbal composition for treatment of cancer. It has got all these ingredients and pharmaceutically acceptable excipients. Now, if you see in this claim, it has got saw palmetto at 5 to 90%. So this is the main claim. Now you will have sub claims where I will define that instead of 5 to 90 is a huge range. So in the subclaim, I will specifically mention that the saw palmetto will be 45%.
Okay.
In another subclaim, I will say that the bromelain will be instead of 1.5 to 21.5, I will define that it will be 11.5. Or the grape seed complex will be between, maybe it will be 12%. And the selenium yeast is about 5% or 10%, whatever it is. So the specifics of this composition will be set out and will be demonstrated, will be shown in the subclaims. So subclaims are in aid of the main claim. So normally what you do is to have one claim, which is the main claim, which will define broadly the invention, which people cannot copy. So people almost always refer to the main claim and see whether they are following within this claim or not. So if I'm making a composition which is also for treatment of cancer and which I want to copy, then perhaps I will remove this palmetto. I will only keep this bromelain, I will keep this willow, and I will keep this grape, and I will keep the selenium, and I will try to make my composition. But still I will fall because just because I've removed palmetto, all the others are still there. So I will still fall within the scope of this claim. So this is the way you make a broad claim. So the broad first claim is the main claim, and the subclaims are the subsidiary claims which define the various elements of the main claim. And the subclaims are very important because sometimes, you may have a product which is put in the market, and in that product which is in the market, you may have certain specific features. So those you may wish to claim in the subclaim, so that when you put the product in the market, your product is covered, that product is also covered, as well as it is broadly covered in the claim. There is a penumbra of claim, there is a penumbra of coverage around the product, because whoever will copy your product in the market will only copy that product as it is, and perhaps with some small variations. So therefore, if you cover those variations also within the claim, then you're generally very well protected.
Okay. So, so there is another question. This person has asked. So while drafting how to get start with the claim, like he wants to draft the first claim. So what should be its strategy, and how should he, define the first claim?
In the first claim, he has to write whether it is the product or the process. So he can write a product a composition comprising so and so ingredients. And if it is a wheel assembly, he will say a novel wheel assembly comprising the following ingredients. So you describe the product in terms of its parts or its ingredients. That's how you do a first claim. And the subclaims will define the parts of the main claim, the ingredients, the components of the main claim. So that's the strategy. And then you also keep that, so that will be around about 4, 5, 6, 7 claims. And then you will come to the strategy of making the process claims. So to say that a process for preparation of the compound as claimed in claim 1. So a process for preparing the compound of claim 1, and then you will show, how that process is made. So you will have the, process for preparing of that compound, and you will define the parameters of that process, the maybe the temperature, the reagents, and the catalyst or whatever. So this is how you will draft the main claim, and then you will draft a process claim, and perhaps if there is any other claim for, maybe if you have a utility of that product, then, or a combination of that composition with something, you can claim that as well. Kit, all of those things can be claimed. So you have, that's why I said again, planning, we come back to planning, to what all the things that you want to claim. So you claim them, and then you divide your claims also in the same way.
Okay. So now the next question, which one of the viewer has asked, what is the difference between this comprising of and consisting of? Are they same, or can they be used interchangeably, or what exactly is the difference?
So comprising is a broad terminology which is used, which includes everything within the claim. It's a broad terminology. So even if something is omitted in the claim, but it is a trivial essential element, then that will be also be included. So to give you an example, suppose I have defined the soup, and I said that it should have corn, it should have tomato, it should have this, it should have that, onions, it should have chopped coriander leaves, etc. I forgot to mention salt in the claim, but because I've used the word comprising, so salt will be inherently included. So you can't say that now I have added salt, so I have got a new invention. No, it can't be. Or I've added sugar, so I've got a new invention. That's not the thing. So those kind of trivial elements will certainly be included within the scope when you say comprising. It includes everything, all inclusive. It's a broad terminology. On the other hand, when you say consisting of, so when you say consisting of, you are then limiting yourself to the specific ingredients which you define in the claim. So in the example that I gave, if you forgot to mention tomato, in that consisting of claim, then the soup will not contain tomato. It will contain corn, it will contain coriander leaves, but there will be no tomato in it.
Okay.
So your scope will be limited. So therefore, the choice, that's why the choice of words is so important. So it depends on the choice of language that you use, it's a closed-ended word. So consisting of is closed, whereas comprising is open, and it will accommodate anything that the invention will embrace, which is within the specification and which has been described in the specification.
Okay. So the next question other viewer has asked, they have seen this word in claims time and again, that is wherein. So why it is often repeated and why it is visible? What exactly is the importance of this?
So wherein is a legal terminology. So what they want to convey by saying wherein is that here is claim number 1, and in that, now to take the example which I have given you earlier, the yeast. I'll just share that slide just to make it clear once again. Here, so I will say herbal composition for treatment of cancer, wherein, so this is the same composition. In this, the saw palmetto is 10%. Preferably, it is 10%. So it is to describe what within the first claim, here is one ingredient, and in that ingredient, this is the defined percentage. So wherein is basically to say it is part and parcel of something else. So it's a legal jargon which is often used. Nothing to be confused about it. Just a legal jargon which is used. It is quite, we all the legal people always like to use words like there to, wherein, therefore, and whatever, so it's one of those legal jargons.
Okay. So there is this next question. So this person is asking like whether what is the difference and implication of using the word at least and any one of.
Yeah. So when you say at least, so if I say saw palmetto and I say at least 5 to 90%, or I say at least, so when I say at least, then I have to leave it to a single number. I cannot have 5 to 90%. It has to be only 5%. I can't have 90%. So when I say between, I can say saw palmetto between in the range of 5 to 90%. So when I define a range, I must use the word between 5 to 90%. When I say at least, it means that I'm defining the lower amount or the lower range, and the upper one is anything. So I'm leaving the upper end open-ended.
Okay.
So I can say wherein the amount of saw palmetto in the composition is at least 5%. It can be 7%, it can be 10%, it can be 20%, it can be 30%, it can be 500%. Everything according to me works. It can be so any amount you can take. So really, when you say at least, it means that any amount of that ingredient can be present, and there is no limit to it. So this kind of language leads to problems, because by saying at least 5%, then you're attracting a lot of prior art.
Okay.
There will be a lot of prior art which would have used saw palmetto only at 5% or at 7% or at 200%, and it will have nothing to do with your invention. So by using such language, you will attract such prior art. So it's always good to give a range, a safe range, maybe between 5 to 90%. I mean, I've just given some example here, but within the scope of your invention, you will have to define a specific range. It's always good to give a range. So that was about at least. Now, if you say any of, suppose you give a composition here, and I say a composition for treating cancer, comprising any of the following ingredients. So any of the following ingredients means that you can have either saw palmetto or bromelain, or you can have willow, or you can have grapeseed, or you can have selenium. So you can have any of them. So it's a choice between 10 or 15 or 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. So it's a choice between a group. So that's when you try to use the word any of. So it often is used in chemicals where you say the group, the acylating group can be so and so, so and so, so and so, and you just give any of them. Or the reagent can be a hydrochloric acid, it can be so and so acid, it can be so and so acid. So this is the way you write. When you know that all the choices are valid and workable.
Okay. So I think this explains pretty much everything related to our drafting and claim. So next we'll proceed to another session that will be like for the industries, like how to spot innovation and upgrade their employees and make them sensitized to figure out the inventive steps and then file for patents and protect it holistically. And we'll come to another aspects like even after having patents, like how you can, without getting into trouble, going for litigation, what are the measures if we have any. So yeah, we'll come back to this in the fourth session. Till then, take a break and have a quick coffee, and everyone is expected to be back. So yeah.
Visit ILMS Academy for various courses from contract drafting, RTI, labor law, GST, and more. Get certified to enhance employability.